Okay, let's see. I am waiting for the screen here, and I'm trying to figure out just where I'm going to see my comments. So, hold on just a second, and we will get going here. Not seeing where the comments are going to post. So, I am going to end this, and I'm going to go over to Facebook Live and try another way because otherwise I cannot see your comments. And I hope that we really have a good conversation this morning. So give me just a minute here. Hold on. Here we go. Not going to end this. All right. Anybody here? I am not quite sure. It says that we are live, and I don't know if we have any attendees or not. Let's see here. A little bit confusing. Well, anybody here? Let's see if we got a comment. Hey, hi Beverly. I am so glad you're here. I really don't like this platform because we can't really talk. We can only do comments. But thank you so much for saying that you're here. Welcome. And do you have questions? Since it's just you and I so far, I hope some other people will join us. Hey, Melinda, great. All right, 6 people. This is awesome. I really had hoped that I'd be able to see that, but that's okay. So welcome to all 6 people. If you want to give a shout out and say that you're here, that will be great. And then we'll know that you're here. I will know that you're here. Other people apparently know that you're here. I am here to answer your questions today. And if you don't have questions, I do have a little list of things that that I can talk about. So I think next time we might do this as a Zoom call because then people can actually talk. And I think that would be really helpful. So, but we will do our best with comments. I wanted to see how Facebook Live would go because we have unlimited audience for Facebook Live. So, because of course they prefer it. So, okay. So here are some topics that I came up with today. A typical day. How many hours a day do you spend homeschooling your kids? How to choose curriculum. I'm just going to read this off my little list here. What if I don't know enough to teach my kids? That is a really common question. I think we all have that. We suffer from that imposter syndrome maybe, or anxiety over, I don't remember everything that I learned, so how can I possibly teach my kids? We can go to that. Testing. What is the testing? When do we have to do the testing? How do we use the testing? How do we grade? How do we advance our kids to the next levels? Let's see, what else do we have? And how do I find community? Somebody just asked that this morning, looking for others and connections. So let's see, I'm going to check comments. Any of those resonate with anybody? Or do you want to just simply listen to me talk? I can just talk, but I hate to do that to you. I don't want to bore you to death. So tell me, help me out here. What are your questions that you'd like me to talk about today? I'll give you just a minute to type. Those sound good. Plus, let's see. Beverly, I see a plus, but I don't see plus what? I don't know if the characters are limited. Tell me what else. Okay. All right, I am just going to start then. Testing was number one on my list because somehow even those of us who are veteran homeschoolers wonder about testing. So, testing in North Carolina, if you have an open homeschool, so you filed your notice of intent with the North Carolina, oh, thanks, Beverly, middle school, I'll get to that. If you filed your notice of intent with the NCDNPE, Department of Non-Public Education, then you are required to test your student annually with a nationally normed standardized test. The thing that always confuses people about the testing is when do I have to test? You can choose to test as many times per year as you like with one of those exams, or just test once within a year. And some people will interpret the law to say, or the statutes to say, that you have to test within the first year of opening your homeschool. So if I open my homeschool July 7th, then I have to administer that test once before July 7th of the next year. And that's fine. Others will say, well, it's got to be within that 9 months, because North Carolina says you have to operate your homeschool on a regular schedule over a course of 9 months. So some people will say, well, it's the traditional school calendar year, but now we have year-round homeschooling or year-round public schooling. So maybe that's not really as applicable anymore, or you can't really make that argument. So what I go with is test annually, once every year. So, and to be honest with you, if you say you open your homeschool in July and you want to test in April, that's fine. I always chose to test in April, and that worked out well for my kids. It was just springtime. It's something that we could work on then. So since we have an actual question, have all of those specifically for kindergarten, Melinda says. Okay, schedule, curriculum, recommendations for kindergarten, testing as pre-assessment, so we know where the gaps are. Oh, wow, great. Do you need to update your child's? Okay, here we go. So, oh, thank you for these questions. These are great. Okay, so testing, we'll stick with testing for a minute. And you don't have to test your kindergartner. If you did not open your homeschool yet, you do not have to test your kindergartner. So now testing as an assessment for where they are. You can do this. I always used the percentile ranks and the test results of the exams I gave you every year as kind of a snapshot, a ballpark measure, comparison, if you will, for how did my kids do compared to the year before. As you know, or maybe you don't, you haven't done this yet, you'll get a percentile rank, and kind of for the grade level you test in, it'll say your student is like in the 90th percentile or the 50th percentile. Here's a cool thing in North Carolina. You do not have to order the test for your child's grade level. You can test out of grade level. Now, what is that about? If you have a student who's academically advanced, feel free to administer an exam that is above their grade level. You can do that. If you have a student who has maybe learning difficulties or challenges, you can administer an exam for the level that they're at. And why do you want to do that for a child that has learning challenges? Well, one of the reasons that it makes sense to do that is so that you get a more accurate assessment of where your child is. So say I have a fifth grader that I believe is kind of at a third grade level, right? I might go ahead and administer that third grade exam and find out just how that student tests compared to other third graders. That can give me valuable information. And I am not so much a grade level person. I am very much a where your student is at is perfect. And all we want to do is advance that student. We don't want to apply pressure to them to get them to perform. We want to nurture them and help them move along the learning path. So to me, wherever your student is a perfect place for your student to be and to start. So I don't know that I've answered that very well, but you can test at the beginning of the year if you'd like. What I think was more helpful, the standardized tests, to use that, Beverly, as a pre-assessment is a bit challenging, depending on what you mean by learning gaps. Um, I might have someone come in and do a Woodcock-Johnson exam if I was worried about um, finding out exactly where my student was, because they will give you a grade level assessment for each subject. Your student is at this grade level for English and that grade level for math. And the way they administer the exam, I thought was wonderful. It's in person, and when the administrator gives your student, for example, the math portion of the test, they will hand the student this paper and say, there will be questions on here that you don't know. So right there, they have given them permission to not know everything, which I think is very validating for the student and allows that student to go, okay, I get to do what I can do. And you get a better assessment. There's not so much guessing. Anyway, they give you a really good feedback. So if you want to do something like that as an assessment, otherwise, most curriculum uh, vendors will offer you some sort of pre-assessment kind of test, especially for math curriculum, because nobody wants to sell you a curriculum that doesn't fit your student. That's going to be unhappy customers, and they don't want to do that. So try those for pre-assessment to see what you might need to pick up. The other thing to keep in mind is that we all have learning gaps. So what we think of when our kids are going to school is that they're getting everything they need to know. And first of all, are they getting everything they need to know? And second of all, are they retaining it? So we are all going to have learning gaps. So tailor your assessments and your education to your kids and what you want to know so that you can help them move forward on that learning path. I don't know if that's answered the question. Let's see. I'm just going to try and spin here through. All right. Someone asked, Heather, hi. You said, do you need to update your child's age each year on the DNPE site? They want you to. According to the North Carolina statutes, you do not have to update that. Here's why they want you to. They want accurate numbers. And the reason they want accurate numbers is the legislature pressures them to provide reports and accurate numbers. The point where it gets to be important to have more accuracy in those numbers is when your child is going to be doing driver's education, because the state controls what we have here in North Carolina called a driver's ed certificate. And if you're homeschooling a high schooler or a upper level middle schooler, you probably have that on your radar already. If you're elementary school, probably not. But in order to participate in the state's graduated driver's license program, you have to have completed driver's education, and you have to have this driver education certificate. These are tightly controlled by the state because you have to be making progress towards graduation in order to qualify for this graduated licensing program. So DNPE issues driver education certificates for North Carolina. They also provide driver's education for all students in North Carolina. And it's at a fixed cost. The legislature sets the cost. But in order to do that, they have to budget for how many students are going to enroll in driver education in the next year or two. And so when your student gets to be 12, 13, 14, they can use those numbers to go, hey, we anticipate this many kids are going to need driver education in the public schools. We budget for this. And then we can also issue those driver education certificates. So that's kind of why you update your students' age on there. And otherwise, it's just a matter of statistics keeping for the DNPE, and you are not required to do that. So, but there are some reasons when they get to high school that you would want to do that. Let's see, testing, pre-assessment, schedule, curriculums, recommendations for kindergarten. Michelle, hey, kindergarten, man, play. Seriously, play and do as little unstructured learning as you can. So if you're a working mom, that you're like, oh my gosh, I have to entertain my child all day. No, you don't. You can find all kinds of wonderful things for them to do. One of the things that we did very heavily was sand and water play and Play-Doh and I think Model Magic and those Crayola markers. Just create, just do. We have some of the strangest kid artwork. It's just little uh, blobs of things all over the paper, right? But that's their creative expression. And one of the things that we need to do as we get to be older in our society now is retain that creative expression. So if you can nurture that in kindergarten. Now, as you go along, there's going to be natural opportunities for things like reading and language to develop. I read to them before they could read. We would go to the public library every week, and I don't know how this is going to work with COVID, but I took a rolling suitcase, 2 kids took a rolling suitcase and would take them to the library and say, pick out whatever you want. One day that kind of backfired on me, and I found that my 7-year-old had unshelved 3 shelves in the kids section. He wanted them all. So, but that is a good thing. It's like, oh, sweetie, we didn't bring enough suitcase to take those home. We have to leave some for other kids. But it was really a good thing because, hey, he's interested in learning. He's interested in hearing these stories and reading these books that were of all different topics, just out of the children's section. So read to your kids. Let them pick the books and set aside a time for reading. We would sometimes read into the wee hours, and it was exhausting. But Mommy, please read more. So I would do that. I would focus on fine motor development and gross motor development. Get outside if you can for kindergarten and also first grade and second grade. We're learning a lot now about how getting outside and being able to accommodate your vision, your eyes will accommodate on the near and the far, is really good for healthy visual development and prevents even nearsightedness in some cases, is what the research is saying. The vestibular motion out there will help you with your balance and will help with integrating the senses. So give that a try as much as you can do. When we couldn't get outside, one of the things that we did was I don't know if you've seen those big, are they 50-gallon, like Rubbermaid or Sterilite tubs or something like that? We put rice in there. And you can put a lid on it to keep the dust and stuff out. But we put rice in there and put it on the kitchen floor so that, if the rice comes out, it's not my carpet. But put scoops and cups in there, and you can scoop and cup and pour. And again, that's real good sensory development. So for kindergarten, that's what I would do. Now, if your student is chomping at the bit to read in kindergarten or to do some worksheets or something like that, then go for that. Try to meet your student wherever they are and work with what they're leading you essentially to do, especially at that age. I think that's the best advice that I can do that. Okay, let's see, Beverly, middle school, balancing working from home full time. That's a challenge, of course, because you have to be available to them as well. So one of the things that I would suggest is give yourself permission to establish a time for your community, or time, not for your community, for your family, times for your family that work for you. A lot of times our schedules revolve around either a job, going to our job, or the public school system schedule. The kids have to be up at a certain hour, they have to get ready, they have to get dressed. And so I would throw that out as the first place to look at how to start balancing. Someone just asked me this morning, how on another Facebook group, how did you make that work? How did you do that? And to be fair, I worked from home, founding a nonprofit, and leading support groups and establishing a co-op. So I did not, for the whole time. For a while, I worked at home as an IT kind of database person, but later on, it was mostly work that I chose. So I gave myself permission to have a really flexible schedule, to do what needed to be done, to set the priorities sometimes on a daily basis for what had to be done. And to give myself permission to realize that this was a season. It's kind of a sequencing concept that we go through different seasons in our lives. And so this was a season for me. And I could do these things for this season. I could let this go for this season. I could add this in for this season and try to make that work. You may come up with you may be able to be flexible in your schedule at home. You may be able to be flexible in your student scheduler. So you might have some things that they can do for schoolwork when you're a little bit more available to help them, or you may be scheduling some things that they can do on their own when you can't. So I don't know if that is helping, but that is what I would do as part of the balance. Try to be as flexible as possible and give yourself permission to do that, to not have to be all things. Also, here's another one that works for homeschooling moms. Get your kids involved in doing whatever they can. Now, they're not going to do it perfectly the first time out, but one of Montessori's principles is that children will self-correct if you let them. If you're not always correcting them, they will self-correct. So I think one of her illustrations is that if a child is slamming the drawer shut, just let it be, because the child knows that door shut with more force than it shuts when mom or dad does it or an older sibling does it, and the child will self-correct. We had that at our house with mowing the grass. The first time one of the kids mowed the grass, there's all these sticking up little strands out there in the front yard, and my husband's like, what do we do? Do we make them mow again? I'm like, no, just let it be. They can clearly see that those are sticking up there out in the grass. And I bet the next time, we're going to try this Montessori thing. I bet the next time it'll be better than sure if it was. So that is another idea. Get your student involved in taking care of themselves, especially in middle school. They can do their own laundry, right? And if you set parameters like, I prefer a full load. If you don't have enough to go with your clothes, grab some of ours and do the laundry. They can let you do that. And might be wonderful benefits, as someone suggested to me the other day, that, hey, I don't have to wait for you to do my clothes. That would be really great, Mom. I can, especially kids who like to change clothes a bunch. Okay. Let's see. What else we got? Find a curriculum. You're welcome, Beverly. Let's see. Finding curriculum that works for the kids, but also won't steer them too far from state education goals for each grade if they go back to public school, or should I even worry about tracking county goals and standards? Hi, Ryan. Okay, here's the thing. Both of my kids always had the option to attend school if they wanted to, every single year. What do you guys think? You want to go to school this year? And on one occasion each, the kids said, yeah, I think I'd like to try school. I don't, my youngest was like, well, if I don't try it, how do I know that I don't like it? And I'm like, yeah, valid point. Okay. So for both of them, I jumped through all the hoops. One was in high school when he decided he wanted to do that. And I created transcripts from what we've done already. And the other one was not in high school. He was grade school, but they will accept, results of standardized testing for that, for placement. So here we were, good to go. Both decided not to go. So your question, Ryan, is this leap of faith thing. What we found is that when the students are learning in a more organic or natural kind of way, if they're learning, maybe you have a real hands-on curriculum, right? Maybe your student is really into building things, and you incorporate math and English. Let's write the instructions for building these things. So communications, maybe you do a video on it. That's another medium for communications. So what we found in homeschooling typically is that our kids actually kind of excel at most things if they have access to the information and encouragement from parents to learn. So kids are really born curious naturally. They're into everything, right? So part of what happens, in my opinion, is that when you go to school, your choices are taken away. This is what you will learn because this is what the school has determined you need to learn. And I'm not going to go into whether that should be or not, but that's just the way it is. It's a place where kids have very few choices. So when they come out of school, one of the concepts that we like to talk to parents about is deschooling. And I can talk about that another time. But basically, it's realizing that, hey, I now have choices. And when kids seem to have more choice about what they learn and how they learn it, they seem to be more engaged. So yes, if you can get your kids to, if you can provide learning materials and resources for your kids that especially are geared toward their interests, I think that you will find that your kids excel in learning and may even exceed some of the school standards. Now, with that said, they may be very asynchronous as well. They may exceed in some areas and not in others. And the other thing to keep in mind is that even in public school, all the kids aren't on the same level. So you kind of have to decide maybe examine what are your beliefs about how school is working for your child. If you feel like school was really working well and your student was on track with all those grade level things or maybe exceeding them, then you don't want to have your homeschooling let your kid fall behind, right? So you want to make sure that you keep them moving ahead. So if it depends a little bit, Ryan, on the age of your student. If your student is elementary age, if you put your student back in school, the principal or the State Board of Education has said that you will need to, that they will place based on the results of standardized testing, if those are available for placing. So particularly if you have a student who is going to take a test and use that, I would recommend you get an outside test proctor because that just adds a little bit more validity to the exam. Someone else administered it, mom or dad didn't, and so there was no opportunity for outside help or anything that might compromise their opinion of the validity of the test. So I would do that. It's going to be up to you to decide whether you want to worry about tracking that or not. Track it for a little bit. Maybe keep a learning journal. See how your student is doing. I don't know if that's answered your question or not. Okay, let's see. What else do we have? Kindergarten, middle school, balance and working. Let's see. Beverly, yes, your daughter doesn't have suggestions for interests. That's kind of what I was talking about with the deschooling. School made everything boring. Absolutely. Um, I'll just give a little bit of a personal, twist to this. As an adult, I was in the Army for a number of years, and as an officer, you check off. You have a career checklist, right? And you do these things, you do those things, and that's how you succeed in the system. That's very similar to the public school system.